The golden lights of the wedding reception blurred through my champagne glass as I raised it to my lips. A stranger in white silk glided toward me, her hands trembling like autumn leaves. "Please forgive me," she whispered, mascara bleeding down her cheeks. "Your mother-in-law, Lorraine Whitaker. She's been using your identity, and your husband Dylan knows everything." Her next words stopped my heart cold. "Tonight's wedding gifts are being used to launder money from debts opened in your name." My name is Eva Calder, and at 34, I thought I knew the rhythms of deception. As a nurse at Riversong Home Health in Port Townsend, Washington, I'd seen families lie about medications, hide bruises, pretend everything was fine when their worlds were collapsing. But I never imagined the betrayal would seep into my own home like coastal fog through weather stripping. That morning started like any other. 5:45 a.m. Alarm, the perpetual smell of antiseptic clinging to my scrubs even after washing. Our rental apartment sat 3 blocks from the ferry terminal, close enough that the horn's blast rattled our windows twice daily. Dylan was already awake, hunched over his laptop at the kitchen table, surrounded by coffee-stained sales projections that never quite materialized into commission checks. "Mom wants you to go with her to some cousin's wedding on Bainbridge Island this weekend," he said without looking up. His fingers drummed against the ceramic mug, a nervous habit that had intensified lately. "Which cousin?" I asked, pouring coffee thick as motor oil. "Hell if I know. Third cousin twice removed or something. Old family friend. She's got the details." He finally met my eyes, and something flickered there, guilt exhaustion, before he turned back to his screen. "I've got client meetings all Saturday. You know how it is." I did know. Dylan's sales job at a medical equipment company meant erratic hours and even more erratic paychecks. Lorraine had been supplementing our rent for 3 months now, a fact she never let us forget during Sunday dinners. My phone buzzed with a text from Chase Bank. "Unusual activity detected on your account." I swiped it away. Their fraud algorithms had been glitchy lately, flagging my regular pharmacy purchases as suspicious. At work, between checking vitals and administering medications, Lorraine called 3 times. She had a peculiar urgency about this wedding, insisting I needed to represent the family properly. "I'll need your birth date for the RSVP," she said during the 3rd call. "Full date, year included." "You know when my birthday is." "Lorraine." "For the seating chart, dear. They're very particular. And what was that library card number you mentioned?" "The one you've had since college. I'm updating our emergency contact forms." The questions seemed innocuous enough. Lorraine had always been meticulous about documentation, keeping color-coded binders for insurance policies and medical records. I rattled off the information while drawing blood from Mr. Peterson, my hands working on autopilot. That evening, while Dylan claimed to be meeting clients at the Marina bar, I sat on our narrow balcony watching the fairy lights traverse the darkening water. My phone lit up with another notification, this time from a credit monitoring app I'd installed months ago but rarely checked. "New inquiry on your credit report, Careline Medical Credit." I frowned. I hadn't applied for any medical credit. Must be a mistake. Maybe from when I'd updated my nursing credentials last month. But when I logged in to dispute it, I found something that made my stomach tighten: a test transaction for $1, processed just hours ago. In my years of nursing, I'd learned to trust the small warnings, the slightly elevated temperature that preceded sepsis, the subtle change in breathing that signaled distress. This was that same feeling, that prickle at the base of my skull that whispered something's wrong. I pulled up my credit report. 3 new inquiries in the past week, all medical financing companies I'd never heard of. My credit score had dropped 40 points. Dylan came home at 11:30 p.m., smelling of beer and cigarette smoke despite claiming he'd quit months ago. He collapsed into bed without showering, mumbling about a big sale that might come through next quarter. "Your mom's really insistent about this wedding," I said to his back. "Just go with her. Ava, please. She's been stressed about family stuff." "What family stuff?" But he was already snoring, or pretending to. I lay awake, listening to the fairy horn's midnight call, thinking about test transactions and library card numbers, about the way Lorraine always knew which security questions to ask, about Dylan's drumming fingers and averted eyes. Outside, the fog rolled in, obscuring the harbor lights one by one, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was being obscured from me too, something that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The credit card I'd never opened had just become active. And tomorrow, I would be walking into a wedding with the woman who had all my answers. The Bainbridge Island estate sprawled across manicured lawns that rolled down to Puget Sound, string lights creating constellations above tables draped in ivory linen. Lorraine had insisted we arrive early, to help with preparations, though she disappeared immediately into a cluster of women I'd never seen before. The gift table groaned under the weight of envelopes, thick as medical charts, each one discreetly tucked into a silver box marked "Wishing Well." I recognized no one. The groom worked for a local construction company, Cornerstone Builders. According to the programs, and the bride's family owned several urgent care clinics across Kitsap County. Money breathed through this crowd like oxygen, invisible but essential. The bride herself was stunning in the way that spoke of careful cultivation, professionally whitened teeth, extensions that cost more than my monthly rent, a dress that could have paid off my student loans. Sloan Archer, 25 years old, marrying into the Riverside construction dynasty. But when our eyes met across the cocktail hour crowd, her practiced smile faltered. She looked at me like I was a ghost at her feast. Lorraine materialized at my elbow, steering me toward the bar with fingers that dug into my arm. "Smile, Eva. These are important people." "Who exactly? You said this was family." "Extended family. Business family. Same thing." She plucked a champagne flute from a passing tray, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. A gift from her late husband, she'd always said, though I'd never seen her wear it before tonight. As the sun set over the Sound, painting the sky in shades of salmon and ash, guests migrated toward the reception tent. Lorraine excused herself to powder her nose, leaving me alone at our assigned table. That's when Sloan approached, her cathedral veil trailing behind her like guilt. "You're Eva Calder," she said. Not a question. "Yes. Congratulations on your... We need to talk. Now." She glanced around, then grabbed my wrist. "Please." Her desperation was naked, incongruous with the fairy tale setting. I followed her through a service corridor that smelled of industrial dishwasher steam and garlic into a storage room lined with champagne cases. She closed the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. "I'm so sorry," she began, mascara already threatening to breach her lower lashes. "I didn't know she'd bring you here. I thought you'd never find out." "Find out what?" She opened her clutch, also ivory, also expensive, and pulled out a folded paper. "Your mother-in-law, Lorraine. She's been using your social security number, your information. Opening medical credit accounts." The room tilted. "What?" "She came to me 3 months ago. I had debts gambling, stupid online sports betting that got out of control. $50,000. She offered to clear it if I'd help her. Legitimize some funds, through the wedding gifts." "I don't understand." Sloane's laugh was bitter. "She's been taking cash advances on credit cards opened in your name. Medical credit is easy to get, high limits, especially for someone with your stable employment history. The cash gets dirty fast, so she needed it cleaned. Wedding gifts are perfect. Nobody questions large cash gifts at weddings. It all goes into the construction company accounts, then cycles back out as business expenses." And Dylan. Her silence was answer enough. "He provides the security question answers," she finally said. "Your first pet's name, your mother's maiden name, the street you grew up on. He knows them all." I thought of all those intimate conversations early in our marriage, sharing childhood memories over wine, building trust story by story. He'd been building something else entirely. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I can't." She stopped, composed herself. "Because after tonight, After the gifts are collected and deposited, they're going to let your credit crater. Blame it on identity theft by some stranger. You'll spend years fighting it while they've already moved the money offshore. Jersey, then Cayman, then gone. She pressed something into my hand, a USB drive, small and silver as a secret. Everything's on there. Screenshots, account numbers, the spreadsheet showing which charges map to which gift deposits. I started recording things when I realized they weren't planning to stop with just my debt. Through the door, we could hear the wedding march beginning, the cheerful chaos of guests finding seats. "I have to go," she said. "They'll notice." "But Eva, tonight's gifts. There's almost $200,000 out there. All of it traced back to accounts in your name." She slipped out, leaving me alone with champagne cases and the USB drive that weighed like a stone in my palm. Through the service corridor window, I could see Lorraine at the gift table, carefully organizing envelopes with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this before. My phone buzzed. A text from Dylan. "Hope you're having fun with Mom. Big client dinner running late. Don't wait up." But behind him, in the reflection of his car window, I could see the distinct outline of the reception tent. He was here. They were all here. And I was the only one who hadn't known I was financing this celebration. I slipped out through the service entrance, my heels clicking against wet pavement as I reached the parking lot. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Janelle Ruiz's number. She answered on the second ring, music thumping in the background. "Eva, aren't you at some family thing? I need you. Now, can you meet me at the 24/7 coffee place by the Bainbridge Ferry Terminal?" The music cut off. Janelle had known me since nursing school. She could read panic in my voice like other people read street signs. 20 minutes. I'm bringing my laptop." The drive to the terminal was a blur of taillights and rain that had started falling in sheets. I parked under a streetlight that flickered like a dying pulse, the USB drive burning in my pocket. Through the coffee shop window, I could see Janelle already there, her forensic accounting instincts making her perpetually early. She worked for Glass Harbor Analytics, a boutique firm that specialized in financial fraud investigation, the kind of place that got called when companies discovered their CFOs had been creative with the books. "Jesus, Ava, you look like you've seen a murder," she said as I slid into the booth across from her. "Close enough." I pushed the USB across the table. "I need you to tell me if what I think is happening is actually happening." She plugged it into her laptop, her expression shifting from concern to professional focus as windows populated her screen. For 10 minutes, she said nothing, just clicked and scrolled, occasionally making notes on a napkin. The coffee shop's fluorescent lights hummed above us, and I counted the seconds between each of her sharp inhales. "Eva," she turned the laptop toward me. "This is methodical. Look here, bin numbers all trace to medical credit providers. These merchant category codes, they're for cosmetic procedures, dental work, elective surgeries. Easy to fake because privacy laws make them hard to verify." She pulled up another spreadsheet. "The IP addresses for the applications all originate from the same router. I can trace it." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. "Registered to Lorraine Whitaker's home address? How much? $48,700 so far. But these test transactions," she pointed to a column of $1 charges, "they're probing for more, seeing what limits they can hit before the algorithms flag it." My phone buzzed. Another notification. Careline medical credit payment due reminder. Balance $12,847. "The genius part," Janelle continued, her voice carrying the bitter admiration of one professional criminal recognizing another's work, "is the wedding gift angle. Cash gifts at weddings are virtually untraceable. They deposit them as family gifts, pay off the credit cards partially to keep them active, then move the rest through the construction company. By the time you discover it, the money's been washed through 3 legitimate businesses. Can you prove it legally?" She was already pulling up another program. "The digital trail is clear. Transaction timestamps match the gift log C. Every major deposit corresponds to a withdrawal from cards in your name within 72 hours. It's RICO-level stuff. Eva, racketeering." I need more than spreadsheets. Janelle picked up her phone. I know someone. Detective Noor Patel, Kitsap County. We worked together on a Medicare fraud case last year. She's good, and she's discreet. She started typing. But Eva, we need something more. A confession, documentation, something that proves intent. I thought of Sloane, drowning in her wedding dress in debt, of Dylan's drumming fingers, of Lorraine organizing envelopes like playing cards. I can get it. They're all there, at the wedding. They think I'm stupid, that I won't figure it out until it's too late. Janelle's phone rang. She answered, speaking in low, urgent tones, then hung up. Patel's interested. Very interested. Apparently, Cornerstone Builders has been on their radar for suspicious deposit patterns. This could be the break they needed. She pulled up a new screen. But we need to be smart. Washington is a two-party consent state for recording, but if Sloane's participating in the conversation and agrees, she will. She wants out. Then we can use it. Patel says to gather what we can tonight. She'll have a team ready, but they need probable cause for the warrants. The wedding gifts are evidence, but only if they're still on site when law enforcement arrives. I stood, steadier now with purpose. How long do I have? The reception probably runs until midnight. Banks don't process until Monday. If we move tonight, we can freeze everything before they can transfer it. I thought of Lorraine's face when she'd asked for my library card number, the practiced ease of her questions. They've done this before, haven't they? Janelle pulled up another file. 3 similar patterns in the last 2 years, different names, all nurses or healthcare workers. All had their credit destroyed. None could prove the connection. But we can, if you can get them talking. Yes. Patel's sending me the recording app now. It'll upload directly to their servers, admissible as evidence. She grabbed my hand. Eva, be careful. When people realize their con is blown, they get desperate. I drove back to the estate, rain hammering the windshield like accusations. The reception was in full swing now, dance floor packed, gift table even fuller than before. Through the tent's clear panels, I could see Lorraine holding court near the money, Dylan beside her, no longer pretending to be elsewhere. My phone showed the recording app Janelle had sent, icon disguised as a calculator. 1 tap and everything would be documented. Every word evidence. I walked back into my own financial funeral, ready to rise from the dead. The reception tent glowed like a lantern against the dark Puget Sound sky, rain creating rivers down its clear panels. I entered through the main entrance this time, my dress damp at the hem, hair curling from the humidity. The transformation from desperate flight to calculated return had taken less than an hour, but I felt like a different person walking through those tent flaps. Lorraine stood near the gift table, methodically organizing envelopes with Dylan beside her, both of them handling the money with latex gloves, for the cards with glitter. Lorraine explained to anyone who asked. Smart. No fingerprints on the cash itself. I grabbed a champagne flute from a passing server, letting the bubbles steady my nerves as I observed. The venue's security cameras swept the room in predictable arcs, one focused on the dance floor, another on the main entrance, and crucially, one directly above the gift table. Every 30 seconds, it captured Lorraine's movements as she sorted envelopes into separate bags. Ava. Lorraine's voice cut through the music. Where did you disappear to? You missed the cake cutting. Just needed some air, I said, approaching them. Dylan wouldn't meet my eyes, suddenly fascinated by his phone screen. The DJ's voice boomed over the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get all the married couples on the dance floor for our special dance. An idea crystallized. I caught the DJ's eye and walked over to his booth, weaving through couples heading to the floor. Hey, I said, leaning close to be heard over the music. I'm family of the groom. Mind if I make a quick toast after this song? Want to thank everyone for their generosity. He grinned. Sure thing. Always nice when family speaks. I'll announce you. I texted Janelle, about to go public, cameras rolling. Her response was immediate. Patel has access to venue security feed. Whatever you're planning, we're recording. The couple's dance ended, and the DJ's voice filled the space. "We have a special family member who'd like to say a few words." I took the microphone, my hand steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. The room quieted, faces turning toward me expectantly. Lorraine's expression shifted from surprise to suspicion. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Eva, Lorraine's daughter-in-law." I smiled, letting my voice carry warm and clear. "I wanted to thank you all for your incredible generosity tonight. The gift table is absolutely overflowing." Polite applause rippled through the crowd. Dylan started moving toward me, but Lorraine grabbed his arm. "I'm curious, though," I continued, conversational, like I was asking about the weather. "For tax purposes, you know how it is. What's the preferred method for large cash gifts these days? Venmo, Zelle? Or is good old-fashioned cash still king?" Nervous laughter from the crowd. Someone shouted, "Cash is king." "Interesting," I said, making eye contact with Lorraine. "And I suppose with the construction business, large cash deposits are pretty normal." "Right. Part of the business." The tent had gone quiet except for the rain drumming on the roof. Lorraine's face had drained of color, but she forced a smile, playing the part of the bemused mother-in-law. "Of course," I continued, "proper documentation is so important, especially when money changes hands. You never know when someone might need to trace things back." I handed the microphone back to the DJ and walked off the small platform. The music resumed, but there was a different energy now, whispers spreading through the crowd like wildfire. Sloane found me by the dessert table, her hands shaking as she pretended to adjust the cake knife. "What are you doing? Getting their attention? Is your phone recording?" She nodded, pulling her phone slightly out of her clutch to show me the recording app running. "I've been recording everything since you left. Lorraine's been bragging to her friends about her foolproof system." "Good. In about 10 minutes. I need you to get her alone. Tell her you're nervous about the deposits, that you need reassurance. Get her talking about my account specifically. She'll know something's up." "No, she won't. She thinks I'm an idiot nurse who can barely balance a checkbook, and she's so drunk on her own success tonight, she won't see it coming." Across the tent, I watched Dylan help Lorraine carry 2 bags toward a side entrance, probably to their car. The security camera tracked their movement. Every step was being documented. Janelle texted again. "Patel has 2 units standing by. Need that confession soon. Also, your credit cards just got hit again. $3,000 at an online luxury goods retailer, delivered to a P.O. box registered to the construction company." The audacity of it stealing from me while I stood in the same room ignited something cold and precise in my chest. I walked toward the gift table, where a venue employee was beginning to pack up the remaining cards. "Excuse me," I said loudly enough for others to hear. "Shouldn't those gifts remain here until the bride and groom collect them personally, for security reasons?" The employee looked confused. Mrs. Whitaker said, "I'm sure she did, but this is the bride and groom's day. Let's let them decide what happens with their gifts." I smiled warmly at the gathered guests who were now watching. After all, we wouldn't want any confusion about where the money goes, would we? The employee, caught between competing authorities and sensing the undercurrent of tension, chose the path of least resistance. "Of course, I'll leave everything here." Lorraine reappeared, her face flushed with anger or alcohol or both. "Eva, darling, could I speak with you privately?" "Of course, Mom," I said, the endearment tasting like copper in my mouth. As she led me toward the bridal suite, her grip on my arm just shy of painful, I saw Sloane following at a distance, her phone hidden in the folds of her dress. The trap was set, the cameras were rolling, and in 5 minutes, Detective Patel would have everything she needed. The bridal suite smelled of hairspray and roses, the air thick with the residue of preparation and promise. Fluorescent bulbs around the mirror buzzed like wasps, casting harsh light on Lorraine's face as she closed the door behind us. White satin and tulle hung from every surface, the detritus of Sloane's transformation. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Lorraine's mask finally slipped, revealing the predator beneath the pearls. Before I could answer, the door opened again. Sloane entered, still in her wedding dress, but with her veil removed, hair falling in orchestrated waves. She was trembling, playing her part perfectly. "Mrs. Whitaker, I need to know about the deposits. The bank manager is here. He's asking questions about the cash gifts." Lorraine's eyes darted between us. "There's no bank manager." "He says he knows Eva," Sloane pressed, her phone clutched in her hand like a lifeline, the recording app hidden beneath her thumb. "He's asking about medical credit accounts." The buzzing of the lights seemed to intensify. Lorraine moved to the window, peering through the rain-streaked glass at the reception below. When she turned back, her face had composed itself into something approaching maternal concern. "Sloane, honey, you're overthinking this. The money's already clean. By Monday, it'll all be in the Whitaker family trust, untouchable. But Eva's accounts are old enough now to look legitimate," Lorraine said, her voice taking on a teaching quality, like she was explaining a recipe. 3 months of history, small purchases mixed with large ones. The pattern looks like someone with medical debt, not fraud. Eva's credit score is already dropping. By the time she notices, she'll think she's a victim of identity theft by some random criminal. I forced myself to remain silent, to let her hang herself with her own words. Sloane's performance was Oscar-worthy. But what if she finds out? What if— She won't. Lorraine's laugh was crystalline, sharp. "Eva's sweet, but she's not exactly the sharpest scalpel in the surgical kit." "Are you, dear?" She looked directly at me, and I let her see what she expected: confusion, hurt, the dawning realization of a betrayal I couldn't quite grasp. Inside, I was counting the seconds, knowing every word was being uploaded to police servers. "I don't understand," I said, playing into her narrative. "My credit alerts will keep coming," Lorraine confirmed, drunk on her own cleverness. "But customer service will tell you it's fraud, file a report, dispute the charges. While you're fighting ghosts, the money's long gone. Transferred, washed, invested. The wedding gifts tonight, almost 200,000. Your name bought us quite a portfolio." The door opened again. Dylan entered, rain dripping from his hair. "Mom, we need to move the bags now. The venue staff is getting weird about—" He stopped, seeing all 3 of us together. "Perfect timing," Lorraine said. "Tell your wife how you helped. She should know what a team player you are." Dylan's face cycled through emotions: panic, anger, resignation. "Eva, he reset your email passwords," Lorraine interrupted, impatient with his hesitation. "Every 2-factor authentication, every security question. Your first dog was Biscuit, wasn't it? The street you grew up on was Maple. Your favorite teacher was Mrs. Henderson. Amazing what people share over pillow talk." Each detail was a scalpel cut, precise and deep. Dylan wouldn't look at me, his gaze fixed on the buzzing lights above. "How many others?" I asked quietly. "Before you 3, after you." Lorraine shrugged. "We've got 2 more nurses lined up. Single mothers. That's the sweet spot. Too busy to notice. Too poor to fight back." Sloane's phone vibrated. She glanced at it, and I saw Janelle's text reflected in her eyes. "Got it all. Patel moving in." "The best part," Lorraine continued, stepping closer to me, "is that even if you suspected, who would believe you? The devoted mother-in-law, the struggling husband trying to make ends meet. We're family, Eva, and family protects each other. Is that what you call this protection? I call it survival. The construction business needs capital. Banks won't lend to us anymore, not after the last lawsuit. But nurses have perfect credit, stable jobs, trustworthy." She reached out to touch my face, and I forced myself not to recoil. "You've been very helpful, Ava. Your contribution to the family won't be forgotten." Through the window, red and blue lights suddenly painted the rain in neon colors. Lorraine saw them too, her expression shifting from triumph to confusion. "What? That would be Detective Patel," I said, stepping back from her reach. "Kitsap County Financial Crimes Unit. Everything you just said has been recorded and transmitted to their servers. The security cameras have been documenting your gift table operation all night. And Sloane. I looked at the bride, who had stopped trembling, her spine straightening. She's been wearing a wire since 8 o'clock. The door opened one more time. Detective Patel entered, badge visible, followed by 2 uniformed officers. Behind them, I could see Janelle in the hallway, laptop under her arm, probably still documenting everything. Lorraine Whitaker, Dylan Whitaker, you're under arrest for identity theft, wire fraud, and money laundering. You have the right to remain silent. As Patel continued reading their rights, Lorraine's face transformed one final time, not to denial or anger, but to something like respect. You played the long game, she said to me. I didn't think you had it in you. You're right about one thing, I replied as the handcuffs clicked around her wrists. Nurses are trustworthy. We also know how to diagnose a problem and treat it at the source. Dylan finally looked at me as the officer cuffed him. Eva, please. Save it for your lawyer, Patel interrupted. The one you'll be paying for with your own money, not hers. As they led them out through the rain, past the reception tent where guests pressed against the clear panels to watch, Sloane pulled off her wedding dress's detachable train, revealing a simpler cocktail dress beneath. Thank you, she said simply. The wedding's off, obviously, but at least the debt dies here. Through the buzzing fluorescent lights and the sound of rain on windows, I could hear the distant ping of my phone, probably another credit alert. But this time, I knew exactly what it was. And more importantly, I knew it would be the last one. The reception tent had transformed into a crime scene. Yellow tape sectioned off the gift table while officers photographed each envelope, documenting serial numbers on bills visible through translucent paper. The wedding guests clustered in confused groups, their formal wear incongruous with the police presence. Rain continued its assault on the tent walls, creating a percussion that underscored the surreal scene. I stood near the cake, 3 tiers of fondant that would never be cut, watching Detective Patel coordinate with her team. The DJ had killed the music, but the string lights remained on, casting everything in a golden glow that felt obscene given the circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, I approached the MC's abandoned microphone, my voice carrying across the stunned crowd. I need to share something with you all. Patel looked up from the evidence bags, gave me a short nod. The guests turned toward me, their faces a mixture of curiosity and alarm. Some were already recording on their phones Modern Wedding Instinct. My name is Eva Calder. Some of you may have seen me earlier with Lorraine Whitaker. What you've just witnessed, the arrests, are the result of an extensive identity theft and money laundering operation. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Someone dropped a champagne flute. It shattered musically against the parquet floor. Janelle appeared at my side with her laptop, connecting it to the DJ's projection system. Behind me, a screen typically used for wedding slideshows flickered to life. This is hard to explain without proof, I continued, as Janelle pulled up the first slide, a redacted version of the spreadsheet, with sensitive information blacked out but the pattern clear. For the past 3 months, Lorraine and Dylan Whitaker have been using my personal information to open fraudulent credit accounts. The screen showed the timeline account openings correlating with dates Lorraine had asked seemingly innocent questions, IP addresses simplified for the audience showing all applications originated from one location. The cash gifts many of you generously gave tonight. I gestured to the evidence table. They were intended to launder money stolen through these fraudulent accounts. Nearly $200,000, all traced back to credit cards and medical loans opened in my name without my knowledge or consent. An elderly woman in the front row clutched her pearls literally. But this was meant to be a wedding gift for Sloane and Marcus. Marcus and his family knew nothing about this, I said quickly. Sloane. I looked at her, standing near the dessert table in her cocktail dress, her wedding gown discarded like shed skin. Sloane was coerced through existing debts. She came forward tonight as a witness, not a perpetrator. The projection changed to show a flowchart Janelle's work, simplified but damning. Arrows tracked money from credit accounts to cash advances to gift envelopes to planned deposits in the construction company accounts. "This is evidence that's already been provided to law enforcement," I said. "But I wanted you all to understand what happened here tonight. You were unknowing participants in a crime." A man in a navy suit, probably one of the construction company executives, stood up. "This is slander. You can't just actually," Detective Patel intervened, stepping forward with her badge visible. "Everything Ms. Calder is showing you has been verified by our Financial Crimes Unit. We have recorded confessions from both perpetrators, obtained legally with consent from participating witnesses." The screen changed again. This time, it was audio waveforms with subtitles carefully edited portions of Lorraine's confession, her voice clear even through the laptop speakers. "The money's already clean. By Monday, it'll all be in the Whitaker Family Trust. Your name bought us quite a portfolio. Before you 3, after you, we've got 2 more nurses lined up." The tent fell silent except for the rain and the faint buzz of the string lights. Several guests were crying. Others were frantically texting, probably to lawyers or family members. The wedding photographer, who'd been documenting everything out of habit, lowered his camera with shaking hands. "Your gifts will be returned after they've been processed as evidence," Patel announced. "You'll be contacted individually for statements. If you gave cash, please provide Officer Martinez with your contact information and, if possible, any records of withdrawal." I turned back to the microphone for one final statement. Identity theft is not a victimless crime. It destroys credit, ruins lives, creates years of financial and emotional damage. I was lucky I discovered it in time. The 3 victims before me weren't so fortunate. The projection showed one last image, a photograph of the gift table from earlier in the evening. Lorraine and Dylan handling envelopes with their latex gloves, thinking they were untouchable. "This ends tonight," I said. "No more victims, no more stolen futures. And for those of you who were genuinely here to celebrate a wedding, I'm sorry your evening was tainted by this. But sunlight is the best disinfectant, and these crimes thrive in darkness." I stepped away from the microphone. The crowd began dispersing, some approaching the officers to give statements, others fleeing to their cars. The catering staff stood frozen, unsure whether to continue serving food or pack up. Sloane approached me, mascara finally giving way to tears. "The gifts, can I help return them after the evidence processing? It's the least I can do." "That would be good," I said. Restorative. Through the tent's clear walls, I could see Lorraine and Dylan being placed in separate patrol cars, the red and blue lights turning the rain into a kaleidoscope. My mother-in-law looked back once, our eyes meeting through water and glass. There was no remorse there, only the cold calculation of a predator temporarily caged. Marcus, the would-be groom, stood alone by the ruins of his wedding cake, still in his tuxedo but looking smaller somehow, diminished. His family's construction company would survive. They were victims too, in their way, but the reputation would take years to rebuild. "You know," Janelle said, closing her laptop, "most people would have just disputed the charges, fought it privately, and let them do it again, let them destroy more lives." I shook my head. Sometimes healing requires exposure. Sometimes you have to show the wound to clean it properly. Detective Patel approached with an evidence bag. "Ms. Calder, we'll need you to come to the station tomorrow for a formal statement. Bring any documentation you have, passwords, account information, correspondence." I nodded, then remembered something. Dylan's phone when you arrested him. He was trying to delete something. The password is probably still visible on the phone case. He writes them on the inside lip. Patel smiled grimly. "Already bagged and tagged." He practically handed us the keys to everything. As the tent began to empty, the wedding that never was dissolving into the rain, I stood among the abandoned centerpieces and wilting roses. The string lights flickered once, twice, then went out, leaving only the emergency exits glowing green in the darkness. The service corridor was empty now, just fluorescent strips overhead and the distant sound of evidence bags being sealed. Lorraine stood between 2 officers, her wrists cuffed behind her back, waiting for final processing. The rain had turned to mist, creeping through the propped-open door and bringing the salt smell of Puget Sound. 5 minutes, Patel said to me. Supervised. This is irregular, but given the circumstances. I approached Lorraine, maintaining 3 feet of distance close enough to speak, far enough to stay safe. Her designer dress was wrinkled now, makeup smeared, but her spine remained straight, defiant. Was any of it real? I asked. The family dinners, the concern when Dylan lost his job, the birthday cards. She laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. Oh, Eva, still so naive. Everything is transactional. I needed your trust, so I manufactured it. The birthday cards bought in bulk, pre-signed. The dinners, surveillance opportunities. And Dylan. My son was always weak, took after his father all ambition, no spine, but he was useful. Women trust their husbands with passwords, with secrets. He was my key to your lock. The fluorescent light above us flickered, casting intermittent shadows. You said there were others before me. Catherine Mills, respiratory therapist, took her for $38,000. Jennifer Rodriguez, pediatric nurse, $42,000. Sarah Bendix, hospice care, $55,000. She recited the names like accomplishments, all single, all struggling, all too proud to admit they'd been fooled by family. Where are they now? Bankruptcy, probably. Maybe they recovered. I didn't keep track of the wreckage. I pulled out my phone, showing her the recording app not active, but she didn't need to know that. I'm going to find them, help them join the civil suit Janelle's preparing. Every penny you stole, plus damages. Good luck getting blood from a stone. The money's already moved through 3 shells companies and 2 offshore accounts. Actually, I said, allowing myself a small smile. Janelle traced the shells while you were being processed. Glass Harbor Analytics is very thorough. The Cayman accounts were frozen an hour ago. The Jersey ones, 45 minutes ago. International Financial Crimes Unit works fast when they have probable cause. For the first time, Lorraine's composure cracked. That's impossible. Those accounts are under different names. Names you purchased using my credit, I interrupted, which makes them traceable. And Dylan's phone, the one with the passwords written inside the case. He had a banking app logged in. Very helpful. She lunged forward, stopped by the officer's grip. You sanctimonious little... No. I cut her off, my voice steady as a surgical laser. You don't get to be angry. You don't get to play victim. You systematically destroyed lives for money. You used your son as a weapon against his own wife. You turned love into a con game. I pulled a document from my bag. Janelle had printed it at the venue's business center. This is a protective order, effective immediately. You're prohibited from contacting me, coming within 500 feet of me, or using my information in any capacity. When you get out, if you get out, you won't exist in my world. We're family, she said, desperation creeping into her voice. No, family doesn't do this. Family protects each other. Remember your words. I stepped back. The irony is, if you'd asked for help, real help, I would have given it. I'm a nurse. It's what I do. Patel signaled the officers. As they began leading Lorraine away, she turned back one more time. He never loved you. You know, Dylan. I picked you out at that medical conference. Pointed you out to him. Young nurse. Good credit. No family to interfere. He seduced you on my orders. The words should have hurt. Probably would later when the adrenaline faded. But right now, they just felt like confirmation of what I'd already suspected. I know, I said simply. He told me. Right before he tried to blame everything on you. Her face went white. The mother betrayed by the son she'd groomed to betray. Oh, didn't Detective Patel mention? I continued. Dylan's already trying to cut a deal. Turns out his spine isn't so weak when it comes to saving himself. He's giving them everything: account numbers, passwords, contact information for your other victims. He even told them about the safety deposit box at First National, the one with the backup drives. He wouldn't. He did. Like mother, like son. Everything transactional. Right. The officers pulled her through the door into the rain. I followed, standing under the building's overhang as they placed her in the patrol car. Through the window, I could see her lips moving, cursing, probably, or calculating her next move. Patel stood beside me, notebook in hand. The recording just then wasn't on. I know the law, but I needed to hear it from her, for myself. The things she said about your marriage were probably true, but that's for divorce lawyers to handle, not criminal courts. A second patrol car held Dylan, his head down, refusing to look at his mother's vehicle. The boy who'd promised to love and cherish, who'd whispered my grandmother's maiden name, was beautiful, who'd remembered every security question like they were anniversaries. What happens now? I asked Patel. Arraignment within 48 hours. Given the evidence, bail will be high if granted at all. The federal prosecutor is interested wire fraud across state lines makes this their jurisdiction too. You'll be contacted about testimony, probably multiple times. And the other victims. We'll reach out, offer support for joining the civil case. Identity theft victims have strong advocates in court these days. The patrol cars pulled away, taillights disappearing into the mist. The venue staff had begun dismantling the tent, string lights coming down like fallen stars. By morning, it would be like none of this had happened, just another patch of wet grass by the sound. Ms. Calder, Patel said, what you did tonight gathering evidence, staying calm under pressure, it was impressive. Ever consider investigative work? I laughed, surprising myself. I'm a nurse, detective. I diagnose problems and treat them. Tonight was just a different kind of healing. She handed me her card. If you change your mind, we could use someone with your instincts. As she walked back toward the venue, I stood alone in the mist, feeling the weight of my phone in my pocket. 3 missed calls from the hospital, my real life, waiting for me to return. Tomorrow, I'd go back to taking vitals and dispensing medications, to the honest work of caring for people who actually needed help. But tonight, I'd taken back my name, and that was its own kind of medicine. The aftermath happened in fragments, police tape being wound back onto rolls, evidence bags labeled and loaded into vans, the wedding cake, never cut, wheeled away on its silver cart like a patient heading to surgery. I stood in the venue's parking lot, watching the organized chaos of a crime scene being processed with the efficiency of an emergency room on a Saturday night. Janelle emerged from the business center, laptop bag slung over her shoulder, looking exhausted but satisfied. Preservation letters are sent to all the financial institutions. The accounts are frozen as of, she checked her phone, 11:47 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Behind her, Sloane walked out still in her cocktail dress, carrying her wedding gown in a clear garment bag like evidence of a life that almost was. She'd washed off her makeup, looking younger, cleaner somehow. Marcus called off the engagement, she said simply. His family can't afford the association. I don't blame them. What will you do? I asked. Testify. Pay my debts legitimately. Maybe move back to Oregon, stay with my sister. She paused. I'm sorry, Eva, for my part in this. You came forward. That matters. She nodded, then walked to her car, a modest Honda, not the Mercedes she'd arrived in. That had been a rental, part of the illusion. Detective Patel approached with a tablet. Final signatures for tonight. You'll need to file for emergency credit freezes with all 3 bureaus first thing Monday morning. Here's the case number for reference. I signed, my hand steady despite everything. The money that was stolen will be returned as restitution after the trial. Could take months, maybe a year. But with the evidence we have, conviction is almost certain. And Dylan's deal depends on how much he gives us. But he's looking at 3 to 5 years minimum, possibly more if the federal charges stick. Lorraine, she shook her head, 10 to 15, given the scale and her role as primary architect. A notification lit up my phone. Not a credit alert this time, but a simple text from my supervisor at Riversong. Heard what happened. Take the week, full pay. We protect our own. The mist had turned back to rain, soft but insistent. The sound was invisible in the darkness, but I could hear the waves against the shore, eternal and indifferent. The venue's main lights clicked off, leaving only security lighting, turning everything into silhouettes and shadows. "I need you to submit this," Patel said, handing me her phone with an electronic form pulled up. "It's the emergency protective order. Once you hit submit, it's active immediately." My finger hovered over the button. 3 years of marriage, reduced to a legal injunction. Every shared meal, every whispered secret, every morning coffee, all of it recontextualized as surveillance and manipulation. I pressed submit. The phone emitted a small ping, the sound sharp in the quiet night. "That's it then," I said. "The criminal part." "Yes." "The recovery that takes longer?" Janelle drove me home in silence, the ferry crossing rough with the weather. My apartment looked exactly as I'd left it that morning, Dylan's coffee mug still on the table, his sales reports scattered like tea leaves that should have told me the future. I bagged everything of his, methodically, without emotion. The locksmith would come in the morning. At 1:15, I finally sat down at my laptop and began typing. First, emails to Catherine Mills, Jennifer Rodriguez, and Sarah Bendix, the other victims Lorraine had named. Janelle had found them within hours, their credit reports telling stories of devastation and slow recovery. "My name is Eva Calder." Each email began, "Tonight, Lorraine and Dylan Whitaker were arrested for identity theft. You were not alone. You were not at fault. And if you're willing, we can seek justice together. By 2 a.m." I'd filed reports with the FTC, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the Washington State Attorney General. Each form asked for the same information, and each time I typed it, it felt more real, more mine. Eva Calder. My name, my identity. Reclaimed. The sun rose at 6:23 a.m., painting the sound in shades of gold and green. I stood on my narrow balcony, still in my wedding guest dress, watching the first ferry of the morning departure. Somewhere across that water, in separate holding cells, Lorraine and Dylan were probably meeting with public defenders, spinning stories, trying to minimize damage. But here, in my small apartment with its water-stained ceiling and rattling windows, I was free of their lies, their manipulation, their theft of everything I'd built. My credit would recover, the money would be returned, the divorce would be processed. My phone buzzed. Sarah Bendix had replied. "Thank God someone finally caught them. Yes, I'll testify. Yes, I'll join the suit. Thank you for giving me hope." Then Catherine. I thought I was alone in this nightmare. When can we meet? And Jennifer. 3 years I've been rebuilding. I'm in. Let's end this. I changed out of the dress finally, hanging it in the back of my closet. Evidence of the night, everything changed. In scrubs again. I felt like myself, armor against a world that had shown its teeth. The hospital would be waiting. Patients who needed actual care. Honest work with honest purpose. As I locked my apartment, heading to my first shift as myself again, truly myself, I thought about Lorraine's words. Everything is transactional. Maybe she was right, but this transaction was mine now. I'd traded my naive trust for hard-won wisdom, my stolen identity for something stronger, forged in the fire of betrayal and cooled in the rain of a ruined wedding. The credit alerts had stopped. The phone was quiet. And for the first time in months, I could breathe without wondering what was being taken from me in the space between heartbeats. My name is Eva Calder. This is my identity, and nobody will ever steal it again. The ping of the protective order echoed in my memory, not an ending, but a beginning. The sound of taking back what was always mine. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts. Your experiences and reactions mean everything to me, and they help shape the stories I tell. Until next time, stay safe, protect your identity, And remember, you're stronger than those who try to tear you down.